As a startup company that was founded within an incubator, our initial approach and our initial focus was, I would say, very, very lean and mean. I would say identify what our true value is with the product, what's critical for its success, and what can be maybe distracting. That kind of, I would say, assessment and constant evaluation of what we're doing really helped us on making sure that we're focusing our energy and our resources on the right features. Not always it's best to build a big team. Sometimes it's better to, work with an expert as a part-time position, whether it's a consulting capacity or a temporary project, to make sure that you're managing the development in a way that can really bring the right value and in the proper time, resources, whether it's funding, timeline, and the people on board.
Welcome, MedTech Gurus. Today we're joined by Anat Shani, biomedical engineer, co-founder, and CEO of Synchrony Medical. Anat has more than a decade of experience in the medical device industry and has led Synchrony's flagship airway clearance device, Liberty, from concept to FDA authorization and commercialization in under 5 years, which is a rare and powerful accomplishment in MedTech. Liberty is a patient-centered airway clearance solution designed to help people living with chronic respiratory conditions manage mucus buildup and reduce the risk of infection. What makes this story stand out is Anat's deep focus on real-world usability. As an engineer and inventor, she believes that outcomes depend not on clinical efficacy, but on whether a device truly fits into a patient's life. Anat will share her journey and lessons learned and how comfort, feedback, and patient experience must be engineered into a device from day one and not added later. Hey, Anat, are you ready to be our guru today?
I definitely am.
Oh, it's great to have you. We're very excited. So tell us something fun or interesting about yourself, your family, or your journey so we can get to know you a little better.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Anat. I live in Tel Aviv. I'm married to Liav, who is a civil engineer. So we are two engineers at home, and I'm a mother of two young girls. I actually founded Synchrony when I was during the maternity leave of my oldest daughter. And my youngest was born a few days before initiation of the clinical study in the US. So I would say I've been pretty busy over the past couple of years. A lot of things have been going on, but it's a very, very excited time.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So how old are the kids?
So the oldest is 6, and the younger just recently turned 3. So pretty young.
Yes, indeed, a very busy household, I can imagine.
Yeah,
for sure. So, Annette, you transitioned from an R&D engineer to a founder and a CEO. What pushed you to make that leap, and what did you learn about yourself in that process?
Yeah, so after several years in R&D positions, I felt the urge to kind of expand my knowledge base and my perspective just beyond pure engineering. And I went on to study for an MBA focusing on innovation entrepreneurship. During that time, I participated in an exchange program with the Wharton Business School. So I spent a couple of months in Philadelphia, mainly taking classes by the healthcare management track. And after returning to Israel, I kind of felt the spark to really start something from the very, very beginning and take all of my experience from my previous roles, focusing on R&D from initial concept to first clinical trials all the way to clearance, and really to get that from the very early days of company building. And that's what brought me, I would say, to Synchrony and to meet my co-founders. And I would say that journey has taught me a lot about myself. First, that I was right in my intuition that I enjoy a wider perspective of activities and not only focusing on R&D. So being a co-founder of a startup, obviously you have to deal with all aspects of the product, of the business. So in the same day, I can go from, reading product specs to speaking with investors and to preparing for a clinical trial. And I really, really enjoy that kind of work. And I would say, that's been a crazy journey over these years, transitioning from all of these different disciplines.
Yeah, isn't it interesting how like the spark of a little education and a little different influence or viewpoint can just all of a sudden blossom into something like your journey has been?
Definitely. I didn't have that plan. I would say I'm not the kind of founder that I always knew I want to run a startup or to be a CEO. The opportunity and the exposure just felt right.
Hmm. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
fantastic. So, Liberty recently received FDA authorization, if I have this right, and congratulations for that. Can you
thank you.
walk us through the origin story and how the idea evolved into a regulated product? Can you help us with that journey?
Yeah, sure. So it was at the time that I came back from my MBA experience, and I was looking for a new opportunity. At the time, as I mentioned, I was in maternity leave, so it's a good time for transition. And I was in touch with a medical device incubator here in Israel. At the time, it was called Medics Accelerated. Today, it's part of the Edge Ventures group, where they take needs that come in from whether it's industry, academia, or health systems, and develop them into a product. So at the time, Synchrony's co-founders, who are pulmonologists and respiratory therapists from the Sheba Medical Center, came in with an idea to develop a device that can bring high quality respiratory therapy into the patient's house. And these were actually the early days of COVID. So the need for remote care and advanced solutions in the respiratory space was significant and it was critical. So the incubator team actually partnered me up with the founding members from Shiva, Professor Ori Efrati, Dr. Moshe Ashkenazi, and Gil Sokol, and together we started to take the clinical know-how and their concept of what airway clearance can be and should be, and we developed a device to deliver that kind of care for patients to achieve it every single day. We're talking about millions of patients who need this kind of therapy. And today Liberty is on the market after all the work that we have been through. But before, a solution that were available here in Israel were just not good enough. And devices that are in use for decades sometimes are not well tolerated by patients. And we have managed to develop Liberty to provide effective and I would say improved outcomes for patients, both on the efficacy side and on the usability and the user experience for the product.
Yeah, that's fascinating, and I may put you on the spot here a little bit, but that matchmaking at the incubator, right, was is kind of fascinating because many times entrepreneurs and innovators struggle to get clinical immersion, but they matched you up with some folks that probably helped that pathway and got that feedback. Am I heading down the right path with that?
Yeah, definitely. And I think this is one of the powerful things about Synchrony and how the company was formed, really taking a clear clinical need and clinical concept. But that's not enough, right? You have to bring the right team to develop that into a product. And a lot of the companies formed here in the incubator were built on this approach. So I was lucky to meet them. And, the timing was right. And my background with developing wearable medical devices really fit the concept that was established at the time for the system. And, having engineers work with clinicians, that's what I would say secret sauce to make effective medical devices who can eventually really reach the market.
Yeah, that's fascinating, which kind of ties into my next question because many airway devices are clinically effective but seem to struggle with real world adherence. So, with this, as you started to work with patients, what did you learn early on about why patients stop using these types of devices?
Yeah, that's a great point, and this is something that bothered us for a while as we were launching the company, and even if you read through some clinical guidelines for airway clearance, there's no recommendation for a single product, but the main theme is that the best solution for a patient is the one that they will eventually use and use consistently because these are chronic conditions. Patients need to go through this therapy every single day. And if they're not using the device, no matter how effective it can be, if they're not using it, then we are losing the potential clinical benefit. So with that in mind, we really dove into what stops patients from using the devices if it's not effective. Obviously, if they don't feel that they are gaining any value from it, not having enough mucus cleared or not having any relief in their symptoms, why should they use it and bother? Because the treatment burden for these therapies can be rather rather significant. If they need to do it once or twice a day for 20 or 30 minutes, it better be valuable. And on the other side, it has to be also something that fits within their daily routine, that it's easy to use. Because at the end of the day, if they don't know how to operate it, or if they struggle with too technical tasks, patients will not use it. So keeping in mind, who the patients are, how does their routine look, and what do they need to make a successful therapy work? That's something I would say, try to identify really early on in our journey.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And building on that for just a second, as I did my research, you often talk about comfort and usability as the drivers, which you alluded to right here. But let's go a little deeper, right? It's not just design features. How did that patient feedback shape the device throughout the development? Did you go through a lot of iterations with this?
Yeah, for sure. I would say we went through constant iterations during the development product and at the development phase. And I think here, this is the advantage of working with clinicians and having clinicians as my co-founders and on the founding team. We had really continuous interactions with patients. As we run through some prototypes, we would have focus groups. We would had just, even random interviews around specific points to make sure that what we envision and what we think is usable maybe is really in line with what patients perceive. And for example, I can share our app provides breathing guidance throughout the therapy. So the device has a vest that applies chest compressions, and it works with an app that provides synchronized instructions, coaching the patients through breathing techniques, and even choosing the right words for these instructions was a process that we had patients involved, and we tested different variations, and that's something we constantly did as we developed the product, to make sure that we're getting the right outcome in terms of how are they really interpreting our instruction, and are they really able to do what we plan for them to do. So constant iterations with the patients from basically from day one. I would say it's shaped not only big decisions about the product design, but even daily decisions about the product.
Yeah, I love that. I love the detail even for like the instructions for use, right? Because so many times that's where a gap is, right? The clinicians get it, the providers get it, but all of a sudden it lands in the patient's lap and there's not that much guidance. So I love that you went through that much detail.
Yeah, for sure. And I would say that the product was developed here in Israel, but keeping in mind that a lot of our patients are actually in the U.S. We also had patients in the U.S. involved to make sure that we're not, maybe there are not any oversights because of some cultural gaps or all of those. So really trying to access a wide range of potential users to get this kind of feedback.
Yeah, I love that. So shifting a little bit to the business side, many companies struggle to break into the U.S. market, and so they find that a real challenge. What did you learn about the positioning and messaging and gaining early traction in the U.S.?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. I would say we're still in our early days of our launch. So we launched the product a few months ago. So I can share from our experience up until today. And I would say all of this doesn't start with FDA clearance. It doesn't start when you come to launch the product. It needs to be a thought of way in advance. I mean, product market fit, as I mentioned before, like usability. That's kind of step one. So understanding not only the patients, but the entire adoption curve and all the stakeholders involved in the process is something that you should, I would say, clearly identify from the early days. After regulatory clearance, right? You have the device maybe cleared, but it doesn't mean that it can be sold or can be used. And targeting the right messages to all the different stakeholders is something that is critical. So provider might care about one thing, patient's pain is totally different, and the clinician's overview of the product comes from a different set of considerations. So getting all of those aligned is really critical to get the product out there properly.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and from an FDA clearance standpoint, right, that's one milestone. Getting consistent patient use is another. And you touched on this a little bit, but what lessons did you learn about bridging that gap? Did you have to start real early in that whole design process to get that feedback?
Yeah, for sure. I would say that we have prepared for the launch way before receiving the FDA clearance. And one thing
Hmm.
is also, to choose the right partners. You want to be able to work with, and whether it's your, the team members and the employees that are recruited for that, and whether it's the distribution partners or providers that the company works with, it's important to work with people who have the ability to bring a new product to market, so you can get access to this kind of early feedback. Because I mentioned we had repeated interaction with patients throughout the development process, but that's still not real world situation, and that's not real world use. And different things can come up in these scenarios. So I'd say it's really important to work with in a way that you can get that real feedback early on, and kind of listen even to the subtle signs, or start identifying some trends about the experience. And it's not only about the use, it's about the training, it's about the prescription. All different considerations are part of rolling out the product. So that's something that should be definitely addressed very early on, and should be, I would say, responsive to. So if
Hmm.
should be able to quickly adjust, whether it's the training, whether it's the sales pitch. Everything should be really tailored to make sure that the product is launched in the proper way. Um, and yeah, I
Hmm.
think that's a very important point to consider, because FDA clearance is just, I would say, just the first step.
Yes, yeah, that's very helpful and very true. And and that a lot of our listeners out there are early stage entrepreneurs or soon to be entrepreneurs or innovators. So for these individuals, these engineers and early stage innovators, help us out. What would your advice be? How do they practically build a patient centric design into early prototypes instead of thinking about that later on in the journey? Do you have any thoughts for us there?
Yeah, I would say first starting with, even before interacting with the patient, just learning about the patient's needs, the patient's problems. What are you really trying to solve? And how does that impact their life? So for us, I would say we're focused on a home care product. Patients should be using it on their own. So when we design the product, and kind of this is maybe a specific example, but it shows how I would say our thought process was. Our focus was to design the vest that we have. It had inflatable chambers. We were trying to understand the right sizes for them and how does it fit the different body types. So we would have people, and not only patients actually, come in, and we would put the vest on them to kind of take measurements, and really focusing on the design of the vest itself. But as we were more aware of the fact that people should eventually be using the device and wearing it without any external help, we had them start to try doing the task on their own from step one. And I would say with that, we realized that the design of the tubes that lead air to the vest was actually getting in the way, and they weren't able to wear it I would say, in a safely manner. They can trip over the tubes, or all sorts of issues with the connection. And I would say that notion kind of made us redesign the way the tubes are connected to our vest. And if we had realized this way further into the product development, that could have been a tough thing to tackle, because this slight understanding really changed the way that the vest is manufactured.
Hmm.
Um, so you don't even need to necessarily have a patient from day one, but just someone interacting with a prototype can teach a lot. Um, and when we're thinking more about patients' needs, and what can be done to get some of those insights, there are many resources just online. Patients today are active. They strive for knowledge on their conditions. So there are patient groups and some online forums and even social media. So just accessing those, and hearing what's the challenge for patients, can really focus on what needs to be addressed and needs to be considered of. And I can definitely say that some of these conversations we had early on really, I would say, pivoted some of the ideas that we had for our product.
Yeah, that's great advice, right? To get that information and get that feedback, right? To make sure that you've got that design right before you go into design lock, right? I could see how that was so helpful to you and your team.
Yeah, it could have been. Yeah, it could have been very, very, very painful as a startup. You have to fail quickly, I would say, and earlier the better. Before spending a lot of your funding for going down the wrong path.
Right. Yeah, yeah, very helpful. And then you, as mentioned earlier, you brought the Liberty to market in under 5 years. So what did that journey teach you about team building, pacing, and navigating the commercialization process? Can you help our gurus out there with that?
Yeah, sure. I think this maybe relates specifically to my last point about kind of navigating through the right path. As a startup company that was founded within an incubator, our initial approach and our initial focus was, I would say, very, very lean and mean. And this kind of disciplined execution approach has, I would say, paved our way going forward to really, I would say, identify what our true value is with the product, what's critical for its success, and what can be maybe distracting. And that kind of, I would say, assessment and constant evaluation of what we're doing really helped us on making sure that we're focusing our energy and our resources on the right features, that we're bringing in the right people for the team. Not always it's best to build a big team. Not always the right person for a position would be a full-time employee. Sometimes it's better to work with an expert as a part-time position, whether it's a consulting capacity or a temporary project, to make sure that you're managing the development in a way that can really bring the right value and in the proper time, resources, whether it's funding, timeline, and the people on board. And I would say I was lucky to have both the proper support to do that and the right people around me to make this work.
Yeah, I love that. It always comes back to having the right people around you, right?
Yeah, definitely. That's Without that, there's a limit to how far you can get on your own. That just doesn't work.
Yeah, for sure. Now, Annette, in doing my research, I did notice that you did an interview with women in MedTech, which I loved. In this interview, you spoke about the importance of that movement. So I'm just kind of curious, how has that community influenced your journey, and what message would you share with others entering the space?
Yeah, I have a special place, I would say, for this group and this movement, and specifically here in Israel, I'm part of a program called We at Health Tech, which is kind of a launchpad that is designed to promote female leadership and the health tech community all over. And I would say the notion is that I would say maybe compared to other high tech sectors within healthcare, there are more female representatives. But as you look in more advanced and managerial positions, their representation drops. And the entire focus is to really help women in mid stage career and with managerial trajectory and potential to kind of take the next step and make the next career move and to promote their career growth. So I'm part of that community. I feel it's really important not only for equality considerations, but actually like I talked about, bringing the team, making sure that best people are out there and doing fulfilling their potential within their career. So I think it's incredibly important, and I'm part of that group. Have some meetings, networking events, and just generally helping each other. So yeah, that's something I especially think is important to promote. And if there are any entrepreneurs, specifically female entrepreneurs out there, I'm always happy to try and help.
Yeah, I love that, right? Getting that support to make the leap, right? I mean, you talked about your journey and how that happened, right, through the incubator and others. Having somebody to help with that helping hand, kind of giving you the idea refinement is so useful, right?
Yeah. It's both on giving you, right, I would say maybe the confidence to make these moves and the actual support. Sometimes it's, very professional support that you
Mhm.
might not have access to. And it's important to have that kind of community. I would say not specifically also, generally speaking, the ecosystem here is very collaborative and supportive, which makes it, I would say, unique in the ability to advance despite, I would say, the limited capital sometimes present for Israeli startups compared to other regions.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So, and that this really seems like an exciting time for you and your team at Synchrony Medical. What's next for you and the team and the company? What does the future hold? Where are you going from here?
Yeah, so it's definitely an exciting time having the product launched a few months ago, and gaining that early experience with real users, real people who are finally using our device and hearing how it helps them, how it improves their quality of life, their ability to just engage in daily activity without their condition keeping them back. Hearing from our distribution partners and our DME providers that patients are clearing way more secretions compared to everything that they have seen before. I would say it's an exciting time, and looking forward, we're just focusing on scaling that and rolling out the product across the U.S. As we're doing that, obviously, and I mentioned, I'm an engineer, so all of the things that we always wanted to have in the product and had to maybe prioritize for further times are actually now coming in and picking up. So there's a lot on the front also for further product development to enhance our technology and really provide a complete solution for disease management for these patients. So a lot is happening, and our team is growing. It's definitely exciting time for us.
There's always something else to work on, isn't there?
For sure.
I love that.
Yeah.
So Annette, first of all, I'd like to thank and acknowledge you for the time that you took to be our guru today. If somebody wants to learn more about you or Synchrony Medical, how do we do that? Is there a website? Are you on LinkedIn? How do we find out more?
Yeah, sure. So I'm on LinkedIn. Anat Shani. Synchrony is on LinkedIn. We have a web page, and obviously our official portal for liberty.health.
Mhm.
That's more information also about the product itself. So yeah, don't hesitate to reach out, and I'm happy to help in any way I can.
Oh, that's fantastic. So once again, Annette, we really appreciate your time and your being our guru today.
Thank you. It's been great to participate.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to MedTech Gurus. I am Sylvester Harris, your MC. If you want to learn more about Tom and his consulting services, you can go to www.pctmedical.com or email Tom at tom@pctmedical.com. Now, I can be reached at Sylvester Harris, that's SylvesterHarris 5048@gmail.com, and I'd be pleased to discuss any voiceover work that you may want for your company or broadcast. Hey, thanks so much for listening, and catch us on the next episode of MedTech Gurus.